Interesting. Okay. Hello world. I am not sure if you can hear me. This is we're working on this, so hang tight there for me.
The Pharisees are...
Alright, I'm gonna see how the audio is looking. Hello world. I am not sure if you can hear me. This is we're working on this, so hang tight there for me. Alright. I think you guys should be able to hear me and see this as intended, hopefully. Alright, we're gonna try to get this sorted as best we can, as quickly as we can. Alright, that should be set now. Let's try this one more time. Alright. Alright, I'm currently starting on chapter 54 of Lord of the Mysteries. I hope you guys can see this okay, can hear me okay. Again, I'm gonna try my best to stay on top of things as best as possible. I still learning a lot here, so take that with a grain of salt. I might miss something, something might not come out right. We're gonna try to get that fixed up as quickly as we can. Alrighty. So, chapter 54, the first divination requester. Upon seeing Klein's odd expression, Angelica immediately felt her beliefs waver. Is that so? Mr. Glasses mentioned that you were able to tell of an ailment in his lungs simply from observation. Her voice softened until she finally shut up. I believe... Oh, sorry. Observation. A dark glabella. Klein was instantly enlightened as he shook his head with a chortle. That's a new word. Alright, give me one. I'm actually interested what that word means. Give me chortle. Laugh in a breathy, gleeful way. That's cool. As he shook his head with a chortle, I believe Mr. Glasses was mistaken. He was planning on being perfunctory, but after recalling that no one sought his divination services the entire afternoon yesterday, his mind whirled. It affected his goal of acting as a seer, so he explained it's actually a form of divination. Divination? But Mr. Glasses mentioned that you only observed his face. That's also considered divination? Asked Angelica in shock and doubt. Klein smiled and composed. As a member of the Divination Club, you should know about palm reading, right? Palm reading was not patented by the foodaholic empire even on Earth. India and old Europe had developed similar principles, much less in a world with beyonder powers. I know about it, but it seems you did not read his palm. Were you observing him in secret? Asked Angelica curiously. I was using face reading, Klein cooked up a lie. Its principles aren't very different from palm reading at a fundamental level. Really, Angelica's eyes were filled with disbelief. In order to develop his career as a seer, Klein chuckled. He pretended to be in thought as he tapped his glabella twice. He focused his eyes and Angelica's aura presented itself. Her head was purple, her limbs were red, her throat was blue. There was no problem with her health, except for some colors being duller. However, that was a manifestation of ordinary fatigue. Klein then looked at her emotions. She saw orange mixed in with some red and blue. It also meant warmth coupled with some excitement, though. Thankfully, after realizing there was nothing abnormal about her, Klein planned on deactivating his spirit vision, but it was at that moment when he suddenly saw a rich darkness hidden in the depths of her emotional colors. Furthermore, she's lacking a little of white and eagerness to improve, Klein nodded while in thought. Mr. Moretti, were you reading my face? Seeing the young gentleman in black in front of her turn silent abruptly while seriously sizing her up. Angelica keenly noticed something. She asked in a half-curious and half-worried manner. Klein did not immediately reply. Instead, he tapped his glabella twice as he wore a look of scrutiny. Just as Angelica was feeling unease, he said warmly, "Madam Angelica, there are some sorrows and pains which you should not seal in your heart." Angelica's eyes widened as her mouth turned agape. However, she did not say a word. She looked at Klein and his half-top hat with an apparent scholarly bearing. He heard him use a... That's gotta be... I think that's gotta be... She heard him use a deep, comforting, warm voice to say, "You..." Interesting. Okay, I'm guessing there's a spelling error there. He used use a deep, comforting, warm voice to say, "You either need to go mountain climbing, a game of tennis, or perform a tragic play to exhaust your body due to exercising. Let your tears flow uninhibited, then scream and cry. Express all of those emotions. That will be very helpful to your health." The moment those words entered her ears, Angelica felt like she had transformed into a statue. She stood there, motionless. She tried to blink as she lowered her head in a fluster, saying deeply, "Thank you for your suggestion." "It seems like there are many members here today," Klein did not continue, as though he had not done any divinations prior. He turned to his side and looked to the meeting room at the end of the corridor. "Sunday afternoon. At least 50 members." Angelica's voice sounded a little hoarse. She only mentioned the key terms, so clearly she's having a rough time having someone tell her to her face how she's feeling, as I'm sure anyone would, especially someone you think is a novice and is unable to do something like that. It's got to be interesting. She paused as her vocal pace gradually returned to normal. "Do you want tea or coffee?" "Saib, black tea." Klein nodded slightly. He politely took off his hat and slowly walked to the meeting room. Only when he vanished behind the door did Angelica exhale slowly. The Divination Club's meeting room was very large. It was nearly twice the size of Klein's high school classroom. In the past, only 5 or 6 members would be present, making it look extraordinarily empty. Now there were dozens of fortune tellers sitting in different spots. They filled up most of the room. Sunlight shone into the room through the few oriel windows. The members were either discussing softly among themselves or asking Hannes Vincent questions. Otherwise, they were practicing and attempting divination or drinking coffee and reading newspapers by themselves. Such a scene made Klein feel like he was back to his schooling days on Earth. The difference was that it was noisier and more rowdy back then, without the tranquility of the meeting room. Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm going to change the music a little. He looked around, but he didn't see familiar faces like Glasses or Edward Steve, so he casually picked up a divination textbook, found a corner, and started flipping through it leisurely. Very soon, Angelica came in with a cup of tea and left it on the table for Klein. As she was leaving quietly, she suddenly saw Mr. Moretti take out an exquisite-looking silver chain from his left sleeve. There was a chunk of pure topaz hanging on the silver chain. What was he doing? Angelica slowed down subconsciously and focused her gaze on Klein. Klein held the silver chain with his left hand and allowed the topaz to hang above the side black tea, just short of touching the surface of the liquid. With a serene expression, he half closed his eyes and the atmosphere around him suddenly turned quiet. The topaz started moving slightly, along with the special-looking silver chain in a clockwise direction. Upon seeing this, Angelica found Mr. Moretti extraordinarily mysterious. "The black tea you provide is great," Klein said softly after he opened his eyes with a smile. His actions were done intentionally for Angelica to see. If he wanted people to select him for his divination services, Angelica's recommendation was a crucial factor. Since he wanted to act as a seer, Klein no longer had any reservations. He completely personified the identity. "Yes, Mr. Vanis is very picky about the quality of tea," Angelica said, stunned. Klein put away his spirit pendulum by winding it properly. Then he raised the white porcelain cup with floral design. With a smile, he gestured politely at her with his cup. Angelica returned to the reception hall, but she no longer had the mood to read magazines. She sat there, gazing at the distance. It was a wonder what she was thinking about. This continued until there were knocks on the door. She jolted awake and hurriedly looked at the entrance, only to see a lady dressed in a light blue dress. The lady took off her veiled hat with a powder blue ribbon. She looked calm and melancholic. "Good afternoon, esteemed lady." "Good Lord. Good afternoon, esteemed lady. Would you like to join the divination club, or are you looking for a divination?" Angelica asked like clockwork. "I want a divination." The lady had a beautiful pair of eyes hidden with sorrow, and she bit her lower lip as she spoke. Angelica guided her to the sofa and explained to her how the divination club worked in detail. She picked up an album and handed it over. "You can pick anyone." In her low spirits, the lady flipped through the album seriously. As there were too many club members there that day, there were too many choices. It left her quite upset. "Can you recommend one from these few pages?" She pointed in the middle section of the album, omitting the fortune tellers priced above 2 soli and those below 4 pence. Angelica took the album, looked at it for a few minutes. She deliberated her words before saying, "I suggest this gentleman." The lady, who looked uneasy, took a glance and realized it was a fortune teller named Klein Moretti. Of course, that was always going to happen. That was the very point, and I think it was intended to show how clever Klein is becoming. "Mr. Moretti just joined the club. Is his divination reliable?" she asked worriedly. Angelica nodded with great affirmation. "Another member of the club and I are certain that Mr. Moretti is an outstanding fortune teller. If it wasn't for his just joining the club, he wouldn't take such low fees." "I understand," the depressed girl nodded. "I'll pick Mr. Moretti for a divination then." "All right. Please hold on for a moment." Angelica took the album and walked towards the meeting room. She came next to Klein and said with a suppressed voice, "Mr. Moretti, someone wants you to divine for them. Which room would you like to use?" That was effective. "My first business is here." Klein put down his teacup and nodded calmingly as he said, "Topaz room." Makes sense. Silver chain with topaz. Choosing the topaz room. Rather effective. Klein sat behind the table that had various divination tools on it. He waited less than a minute before he saw a woman in a light blue dress walk in. She looked down and melancholic. Seizing the opportunity when she was closing the door, he tapped his glabella twice. The yellow color in her stomach seems a bit dull. The dark colors of her emotions are very heavy, mainly worry and anxiety. Klein looked over her carefully and leaned backwards. He then lifted his hand to cut off his spiritual vision, presumably tapping his glabella twice again. "Good day, Mr. Moretti." The woman in the light blue dress sat down. "Good afternoon. How may I address you?" Not carrying much hope of getting an answer, Klein asked politely. As a keyboard warrior, he knew that many people were not willing to use their real names during divination. "You can call me Anna." The girl put her veiled cap aside. She looked at Klein with mixed anticipation and doubt and said, "I would like you to divine about my fiancé's situation. He traveled to the southern continent in March for a business deal." Southern continent is starting to sound like Hunter x Hunter. He sent me and his family a telegram last month on the 3rd, saying that he was going to set sail and return, but he did not return after 20 days. At first I believed that his delay was due to the berserk ocean's weather, but as of today it has been more than a month. The ship that he took, the Alfalfa, still hasn't arrived at Enmet Harbor. The ocean that separated the northern and southern continent was called the Berserk Ocean. It was well known for natural calamities and countless dangerous currents. If it was not for Emperor Roselle, who sent men to discover a few safer sailing routes, countries in the northern continent would still have yet to enter the age of colonization, let alone lay an underwater cable to complete a transoceanic telegraph. Klein looked at his very first client of his career as a seer and asked carefully, "Which divination method would you like to use?" that is the end of chapter 54. I will be right back. I just need to grab my glass of water. Give me one moment. Sorry about that. I am right back. Chapter 55. Anna, with her beautiful eyes, hesitated for more than 10 seconds. You can choose any type that you believe will be accurate. You are the fortune teller, while I'm not. Of course, apart from the cards, including tarot, I have also attempted studying them at home. I always felt they were more like toys or a game. Klein thought for a moment, his wrists leaning on the edge of the table. He steepled his hands before his steepled. Hold on, that's an interesting word. I don't know if that's the right word or that's a mistranslation. I do not know. Interesting. Okay, no problem. He steepled his hands before his face, his gaze peaceful. He said softly, "Then we shall use the astrolabe." He pointed to a fountain pen and stack of white paper on the table and said, "Write down the name of your fiancé, as well as his facial features, address, and date of birth. It would be even better if you could remember the specific time he was born." From her clothes, makeup, and demeanor, Klein did not believe that she was illiterate. Anna did not reply. She extended her hand and took a piece of paper. She lifted the pen and dipped it in some ink. She started writing, pausing occasionally to think. 2 minutes later, she pushed the paper to Klein. Klein received it and turned it around. The information on the paper read, Joyce Mayer, 15 September 1323. Wow, that is an odd date to say. 2 p.m., Tingen City, Eastborough, 8 Stevens Street, short blonde hair, aquiline nose. With just a short gaze, Klein quickly calculated the person's spiritual number. 1 plus 5 equals 6. So that's the 1 plus 5 for 15th of September. Interesting. It was July. In the study of spirit numerology in mysticism, adding the numbers of the days a person was born was called their birthday path number, affecting the person's life before 27. Birth month path number, calculated by adding the numbers of their birth month, affected their life from 27 to 54. So life is split into chunks of 27. Interesting. While the birth year path number, calculating the number in their birth year, affected their life from 54 to onward. Interesting. So there's no split after 54. That's also interesting. It was July 1349, so Joyce was not yet 27, thus Klein immediately calculated the birthday path number. The number 6 represented a balanced and harmonious life, with a heart for giving and a decent marriage or engagement. Following this, he quickly calculated Joyce's year path number. The so-called year path number was calculated by replacing the birth year with the current year. The digits were then added with his birthday path number and birth month path number to get a general understanding of the person's luck. 1 plus 3 plus 4 plus 9, so that is the 1349, the year that he was born, equals 17, plus 1 plus 7 equals 8, and 8 plus 9, birth month path number plus 6, birth month path number equals 23. 22 plus 3 equals 5. His year path is 5, signifying that he would meet with change and accident. He would be required to take certain risks. Klein made a silent judgment after consolidating the facts. He confirmed that the information Anna gave was correct. He retracted his gaze from the paper and turned it towards Anna. Mr. Mayer set off on the journey on the 3rd of June. He asked. If he did not lie, that is indeed the case. Anna bit her lip. All right, Klein. Took the fountain pen and made a note of that. He looked at Anna with his dark brown eyes and said gently, I will begin creating the astrolabe now. I will need some time in absolute silence. Do you mind waiting outside? Angelica will provide you with a cup of tea or coffee. Alright, Anna knew that some fortune tellers had their eccentricities, so she stood up unsurprised. She took her hat with her light blue ribbon and left the topaz room. Klein locked the door and returned to the table. He followed the information and set up the astrolabe, including elements such as his horoscope and location of the corresponding planets and stars. Throughout the entire process, he did not open the astronomy manual. He completed the setup process based on his memory. Over the past few days of his mysticism studies, Klein realized that he could easily grasp and understand anything about divination, quickly turning it into instinct. Perhaps that is the ability of a seer. He completed the astrolabe and felt satisfied. He felt as though his body, heart, and soul had relaxed considerably. As he looked at the outcome, he followed the path of the horoscopes and planet, as well as other supporting details to roughly deduce that Joyce Mayer had met with an accident, but would ultimately survive. At this point, the divination was technically complete, but Klein wanted to pay much attention to his first business transaction. He hoped to build a reputation to aid in acquiring more future jobs. He picked up the pen and wrote a sentence in Hermes, Joyce Mayer's current situation. He read the sentence silently and memorized the information on the piece of paper, repeating it over and over. After 7 times, Klein grabbed the piece of paper and leaned back into his chair. He imagined the sphere of light and his eyes became darker, allowing him to quickly enter a state of cogitation. The surroundings took on an ethereal quality. A formless, boundless fog stretched above him. Klein recalled the content of the piece of paper, then relaxed. He fell into a deep sleep in this state. He was using a dream divination technique, repeating the question, remembering the details, and then allowing his astral projection to roam the spirit world in a dream would allow him to gain revelations. Ordinary people had this sort of experience sometimes, but it was hard for them to recall, as the signs in their dreams were more complicated and garbled. A seer would not have such problems, for they could see the images directly. The surroundings began to turn hazy as Klein turned half asleep. In the concerted fantasy, he saw a blond young man with an aquiline nose, as was mentioned earlier. He was swimming frantically in a sea of blood, nearly engulfed by the flames. And in the end, he managed to escape to shore. The image shattered and changed. Klein saw a blue house with a toy windmill at the door. That blond young man was entering the house slowly, seemingly in joy. At this moment, the image changed once again. Klein realized that he was inside a magnificent palace. That's interesting. So maybe he got saved and then was taken to royalty? That's interesting. The walls were destroyed and damaged beyond repair. Never mind, not royalty. Moss and weeds grew in multiple areas. Through the holes in the walls, he could see a mountain peak and clouds clinging close to it outside. Atop the palace was a huge throne carved out of stone. It was adorned with dull gemstone and gold. It looked as though it was not prepared for a human. Carved out of stone. This is interesting. So I don't really understand the imagery they're making here. It's interesting. This giant throne was empty and mottled, as if it has been washed over by the ages. Klein looked around in confusion. He did not understand why he would be dreaming of such a scene. His turbid mind turned sharp as he subconsciously walked out of the palace in an attempt to ascertain where he was. Suddenly, he felt a gaze fall upon him. It was a gaze that came from behind. Klein suddenly turned around and stared towards the giant stone throne, only to see a scene of countless transparent maggots, slowly twitching and growing. Good lord, that is disgusting to imagine. Klein gasped. He opened his eyes and woke up from his dream. Crystal balls, tarot cards, and the prepared astrolabe entered his vision. Reality quickly replaced fantasy. The initial dream was the result of the divination, but what was the latter dream about? It seemed to be targeted at me. Klein put the piece of paper down. He rubbed his temples and contemplated. I'm not sure who the chatter is, but I appreciate all the hearts, sir. Thank you. The initial dream was the result of the divination, but what was the latter dream about? It seemed to be targeted at me. Klein put down the pieces of paper. He rubbed his temples and contemplated. He could confirm that it wasn't his fear projecting itself in the form of a dream, for he was doing the divination himself. A palace not meant for humans on the peak of a mountain. The silent stare. The contorted and weird scene of the maggots. Klein silently guessed as he recalled. Has the luck enhancement ritual communicated with that existence, or is it a result of the Antigonus family notebook? Right. That notebook mentioned the nation of the Evernight in the Hornacius mountain range. The palace in the dream was on a mountain peak. Interesting. Okay. I thought Klein didn't remember anything from that family book, but interesting. So he has to remember some bits and pieces, but they haven't been mentioned before. Interesting. Chatter, I am curious if you can type in chat. Have you already read the novel, or are you reading with me? Interesting. He made a simple deduction and was revealed that he had picked seer. According to Old Neil, mystery priors could also divine through dreams, but they weren't as effective as a seer. Sure, sigh. It sure isn't letting me go. All I can hope for is the early capture of Ray Bieber. Klein collected himself and picked up the piece of paper with a diagram on the astrolabe. He slowly walked towards the door. He opened the door and headed to the reception area. He saw Anna looking out the window, completely ignoring her cup of black tea. Ah, Mr. Moretti, is there a result? She saw Klein in her peripheral vision and stood up in a hurry. Klein did not answer her immediately. Instead, he asked according to the revelation he received from the dream, does your house or Mr. Meyer's house have a toy windmill? I think I read the few chapters of the manhwa. Ah, interesting. I tried reading the manhwa a little bit. It was okay. I did not find it great though. And I read from a lot of people and heard from a couple that the manhwa just didn't do justice to the web novel, so I ended up going with this. But let me know, how was your experience with the manhwa? And how far did you get into it? You said first few, so I'm gonna guess like probably no more than 10, if I had to guess. But let me know, did you like it? I presume not so much since you only read a couple, but let me know. Klein did not answer her immediately. Nope, I've already read that one. Anna's eyes widened, shocked into silence. After a while, she muttered, "That was a present he gave me. It is by the door at my house. How did you know that? Can this be divined?" Klein smiled and spoke with a gentle tone. "Congratulations, Miss Anna. Mr. Joyce Mayer is currently a guest at your place. If you rush back, you should still be able to meet him. He just experienced a calamity, an unimaginably painful journey. What he needs now are not questions, but consolidations and a warm hug." And sorry, to the chatter, I promise I will get back to reading in just one moment. Would you be interested in me doing a read-through from the very start so that people such as yourself can get caught up? Because I was just reading from where I am currently, but I don't mind doing a second run through to go back and do from the very start to get caught up. I'm only 55 chapters in, so that'd probably be a couple of hours of reading if I had to guess. Really? Anna asked in disbelief. The fortune teller she knew would never speak with such certainty or give such firm conclusions. "You will know if you go back immediately," Klein replied with a gentle tone and smile. "O Lord of Steam, is that true? Has my poor Joyce returned? Are you certain?" "No, I cannot believe it." Anna froze for a moment and said a few delirious words. She took out a 1 solai note from her purse and did not wait for Klein to give her the change. She broke into a small jog as she left the divination club, taking the carriage back home. "Does this include my tip?" Klein looked at the note and shook his head with a laugh. A 2-wheeled carriage steered quickly across the streets and entered the East Borough. Anna watched the streets sweeping past her, feeling a mixture of unease, anticipation, and fear. It did not take long before the toy windmill entered her field of vision. She got off the carriage, showing no care for her bearing. She staggered quickly towards the door and rang the doorbell. The door creaked open, revealing a blond young man dressed in a black formal suit. He was haggard, but his eyes carried a glint of joy. He had an aquiline nose. "I thought that I would miss you today," Joyce said with a smile. "Oh, exalted steam, you really are back." Anna rubbed her eyes, exclaiming in pleasant surprise. What the fortune teller said was true. No, that was a real seer. It was simply fascinating. Thoughts welled in her mind as Anna pounced forward with tears in her eyes and gave her fiancé a warm hug. The two of them hugged silently outside the grayish-blue house. The toy windmill turned slowly, seemingly tossing all the difficulties far away. I have never read any web novel. I think it would be a good experience to read some. I definitely agree. I've made a video about this. I haven't actually posted one. Web novels I find are really difficult for people to get into, especially people like us who enjoy manga and anime and stuff, because I think the majority of us, and this is a generalization, so it might not necessarily be true, don't have a great relationship with studying. And in our minds, if I'm reading something, even if it's fun and fiction and not like actual studying like science or mathematics, you just don't enjoy it because we have like a poor relationship with it, and we feel like, oh well, if I'm reading a thing and there's no photos and there's no nothing, it's just like I'm studying, and that doesn't sound very fun at all. But I would definitely give it a try. Find something that you like. Don't take up. I probably, as much as I've been liking Lord of the Mysteries, I would definitely not start with something that's this extraordinarily long. I would start with something slow, something a little bit shorter to see if you can get into it. You know, no harm, no foul. And if you don't like it very much, feel free to drop it. Definitely give it a try. In a rather spacious living room, Anna and Joyce were seated on different sofas, separated by Anna's parents. Joyce sighed with a satisfied expression and said, "Exalted steam, I am so glad to come back alive, to be able to see Anna again. My poor Joyce, what happened?" Anna couldn't help but ask with concern. Joyce took a glance at his fiancé, and his expression turned grave. "I still feel terrible to this day. I keep waking up from my dreams again and again. 5 days after the Alfalfa left the Caesar Pier, we came across pirates, scary pirates. The only fortunate thing was that their leader's name was Nast, the pirate that calls himself the King of the Five Seas," Anna's father, Mr. Wayne, asked in shock. Although Joyce had already been there for half an hour, he did not volunteer details about his ordeal. He appeared to be fearful, perturbed, and uneasy. It was only after Anna returned and hugged that he finally appeared to put it behind him. Hope everything's okay in chat. Nice to have you. Red Mari. I still feel terrible to this. Nope, I have already read that. He appeared to be fearful, perturbed, and uneasy. It was only after Anna returned and hugged him that he finally appeared to put it behind him. Yes, due to his declaration of being a descendant of the Solomon Empire, the King of the Five Seas, Nast didn't believe in killing captives. Hence, we were only robbed and didn't lose our lives. His subordinates didn't even leave us sufficient food, Joyce said as he recalled the ordeal. His body began to quiver, but he continued to describe his deepest and scariest nightmare. "I didn't lose much of my wealth. I believe that my misfortune was over, but we continued towards our destination. A heated conflict erupted among the Alfalfa's passengers and crew. From disagreement, to fighting, to drawing revolvers and raising swords to kill each other. I saw nothing but blood during that period. One after another, people fell beside me. Good Lord, people beside me fell with eyes opened, never to be closed. Their limbs, hearts, and intestines were scattered across the floor." My God, you gotta say, they definitely have horrid, some very horrid imagery here. My lord. Yeah, I think you should definitely upload the live as videos with community. That sounds, yeah, I was planning to do that. I think I'm recording. The truth of the matter is I'm not 100% sure if I am, or how streaming on YouTube exactly works. I'm still very new to streaming. Videos I've been posting for a little while. I'm gonna try posting them. If nothing else, is hopefully for new people to get into it, and then a little bit also for people who've already read it to maybe fall asleep to or whatever. So I definitely plan on posting it once I can figure out how exactly to do that. But yeah, I would definitely love all of your feedback, and definitely the feedback of the community about stuff I can change, or the audio setup, or like if you'd like to have something else on the screen or whatever. Let me know. This is still very rudimentary. This is like very basic, and I will also say this is a lot more talking than I anticipated before. My throat's, I think, already starting to get a little sore. So yeah, it might be, I was planning on doing this in 20, I was planning to do 20 chapters today. That might end up being way too much, and I might end up doing a little less. We'll just, play it by ear. But yeah, the plan is definitely to post them. I do appreciate the suggestion though, Mari, really. Thank you, and thanks for popping by. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you stick around. This is first. Those of us who were unwilling to turn into savage beasts, the rational group had nowhere to hide and nowhere to escape. We were surrounded by deep blue waves and the boundless ocean. Some wailed, some begged for mercy, some sold their bodies, but their heads were hung from the mast either way. Anna, I reeled in despair back then. I thought I would never see you again. Fortunately, in such a nightmare, there was still a hero. The captain took us to hide in the sturdy keel of the ship, and we relied on the stored water and food there until the maniacs reached their limits. Mr. Triss encouraged us courageously, leading us in an assault against those murderers. After an unforgettable, bloody battle, we survived, but the Alfalfa strayed off course and only a third of the original sailors remained. Interesting. Can you not hear the background music? Because I do have some playing. I'm really curious. Can you not hear it at all, or is it very quiet? Interesting. Okay. My OBS is saying it is there. I'm gonna assume that it's probably just too quiet. I'm gonna try bumping it up a little, but my concern is that it just overshadows my voice completely at that point. I'm gonna leave it here. Let me know in the chat if this is a little better. When we depicted the most horrible and the darkest side of the human psyche, Joyce couldn't help but recall the hero, the man that called himself Triss. He had a round and amiable face. He was shy, like a girl, and enjoyed staying in a corner. That is interesting. I don't know why shy is like a girl, because I'm a guy and I'm very shy, but that's whatever. Only people whom he was familiar with knew that he was a very good conversationalist. But it was such an unremarkable boy who stood in front of everyone with determination in the worst of days. Mari, let me know if this is too loud or it's feeling better now, or if you can hear me okay. That's mainly my biggest concern. I don't mind turning it up more, I just don't want it to overshadow my voice altogether. But it was such an unremarkable boy who stood in front of everyone with determination in the worst of days. Oh, exalted steam, my poor Joyce, you went through such a heartbreaking ordeal. Thank God, praise be to God. He prevented us from eternal separation. Tears welled up in Anna's eyes as she constantly dotted 3 points to form a triangle, the secret emblem for steam and machinery. This is interesting. Oh, exalt. I'm not sure if either of you watch or know anything about Warhammer 40k, but O Exalted Steam reminds me of in the 40k universe they have a similar thing where machinery has like its own priests and stuff. So I just find that very cool. I don't know if it's like a specific callback or it's just like something they have in common. I just find that very funny. This is the reward for our faith. The Alfalfa then went through storms, lost its course, and after surmounting one challenge after another, arrived at Enmat Harbor. Due to the bloodbath that had taken place on the boat, those of us that survived were held captive by the police and questioned separately. We didn't have a chance to send telegrams home to update our loved ones. When they released us this morning, I immediately borrowed some money from my friend and took the steam locomotive back. Thank God for letting me set foot on the land of Tinjin again, allowing me to see all of you again. Then he looked towards his fiancée in confusion. Anna, when you saw me I could feel your happiness and surprise, but I couldn't understand why you rushed towards the door so excitedly right after you got off the carriage. I plan on giving you a huge surprise. Okay, that is something no human would ever say to like a loved one when they come back. They'd never be like, oh my god, like why did you rush in so excitedly? That would never happen, but hey, I get it. For the sake of the book, I get it. And I thought about what had happened earlier and continued in disbelief. There's nothing to hide, Joyce. As I was worried about you, I went to the only divination club in Tingent City today for a divination. That fortune teller, no, the seer, told me, he said your fiancé has returned. He's in the house with the windmill. What? The Wayne couple and Joyce exclaimed simultaneously. Anna covered her face and shook her head. I can barely believe it either, but it happened. Exalted Steam. Perhaps there really are miracles in this world. Oh, interesting. I haven't seen anything. The Call of Cthulhu, I kind of get. Bloodborne, I definitely get. I mentioned this in my video about it, that it reminded me a lot of the Bloodborne universe, especially the setting and everything. So that makes sense. I haven't seen anything from One Piece yet. That's interesting. I don't no spoilers, but hopefully I'll catch something a little bit later. Joyce, that seer asked me for your name, characteristics, address, and birth date. He told me he was going to do an astrolabe divination. Then he asked me if the house with the toy windmill was yours or mine. When I confirmed it was mine, he said, "Congratulations, Miss Anna. Mr. Joyce Mayer is currently a guest at your palace." What he needs now are not questions, but consolation and a warm hug. God, Joyce found it unbelievable and incomprehensible. Does he know me? Did someone send him a telegram? Could it be that he's familiar with the police in Enmat Harbor? No, that doesn't explain it. How did he know that I came to your place? How could he possibly know that you would seek a divination? Did you make an appointment? No, I made a selection at the last minute, Anna replied with a vacant expression. Perhaps a good seer needs to be in control of the vast amount of information, even if it cannot be used anytime soon. Perhaps that is the fascinating aspect of divination. Anna's father, Mr. Wayne, sighed and concluded, In the known history of more than 1,000 years and in the uncertain fourth epoch, divination has existed and yet to disappear. I think there must be a reason for that. Kushid, Bloodborne is a PS4 Sony FromSoft game from the creators of the Dark Souls series and Elden Ring. Extraordinarily good game, but it has not been remastered, so it's still only on the PS4. So 30 frames. It's a little slow, but it's not slow, but like it's 30 frames nowadays is a little jarring to look at. But it's a extraordinarily good game. I would really recommend playing it if you have a PlayStation. If you have access to it, really good game. It's on PS Plus for free. So if you have access to a PlayStation, good lord. If you have access to a PlayStation and you like FromSoft games or like Dark Souls, challenging Souls like games, I really recommend. Very good. Joy shook his head lightly and asked, "What's that seer's name?" Anna thought and said, "Klein Moretti." In the reception lobby of the Divination Club, as Klein had spoken softly, Angelica knew not to go close. Therefore, she only saw Anna leave as though she had lost her soul, wearing shock and confusion on her face. Angelica briskly walked to the sofa and asked out of curiosity, was the result good? She did not dare to ask the actual result, afraid of violating the unspoken rule of fortune tellers. "Yes." Klein nodded and took out 3 copper coins from his pocket. 1/8 of 1 soli is a 1.5 penny, right? God, I will say the coin system in this universe, the currency system is like nightmarish to understand. What is even happening? Yes, Angelica looked at the copper coins and realized that one of them was a penny and 2 of them were halfpence. She quickly held it out and said, "There's an additional halfpence." Klein smiled faintly and said, "Thank you for taking care of my customer. She gave a tip, so it's only right I give you one. It's also to thank you for recommending me," he added in his heart. Okay, so I guess he didn't tell her. I wish he would have. It would have made her feel appreciated too, but whatever. Alright, Angelica felt an unknown fear of Klein, but since the reason was appropriate, she didn't refuse the offer. Interesting, I don't know why she's afraid of him. That's an interesting feeling. Klein returned to the meeting room, believing there would be more people requesting his divination. However, he did not receive a second customer by 40 minutes past 5. It wasn't because the Divination Club's business was poor, but because most people had already chosen a fortune teller. They were likely recommended by others and had long determined whose services to hire. In short, I'm still lacking in reputation. Klein laughed at himself for using game terminology. He finished his 3rd cup of side black tea, grabbed his top hat and silver-edged walking stick, and walked leisurely out of the meeting room. Angelica suddenly recalled Glass's instructions, and she quickly moved to intercept him. "Mr. Moretti, when will you next visit the club? Mr. Glasses would like to thank you in person." "I will come over whenever I'm free. If fate permits us, he will definitely meet me," Klein replied, using the tone of a psychic charlatan, as though he was in character. He then left the club before Angelica could respond and took the public carriage home. When he stepped through the doors, Klein found Benson reading the newspaper and Melissa putting together bits of gears, bearings, and springs in the evening sunlight. And, Mari, when you have a second, based on how you're talking, I presume you've already read all of Lord of the Mysteries, if I had to guess? Or are you reading through? And same for anyone else here. I'm curious, have you guys already finished it, or are you guys waiting for the anime, or are you guys currently reading it? What's happening? Okay. Based on Dr. Ez's comments, I'm going to presume he's either long past finished it or currently very deep into it. Interesting. Good afternoon. Did Mrs. Shoud visit? Klein asked casually. Benson didn't put down his newspaper. Instead, he lifted his head. Mrs. Shoud's visit lasted 15 minutes. She brought some gifts, and she was very happy with the muffins and lemon cake that we prepared. She also invited us over whenever we have a chance to. She is a friendly, well-mannered lady. She knows how to She knows how to carry a conversation very well too. The only problem is their belief in the Lord of Storms. They believe that girls shouldn't go to school, but should be homeschooled instead, Melissa complained. It was obvious that she was very upset about it. Don't mind that. As long as she doesn't disturb us, she will still be a good neighbor, Klein comforted his sister, smiling. The Lone Kingdom was a multi-religious nation, unlike the Frozak Empire in the north, which only believed in the god of combat, or the Faenaptor Kingdom in the south, which only worshipped Mother Earth. It was inevitable that the congregation from the 3 major churches of the Lord of Storm, the Evernight Goddess, and the God of Steam and Machinery had conflicts in beliefs and customs. After 1,000 years of this, they restrained each other, making coexistence possible. You've already finished reading it? Interesting. Okay. So I don't think you should worry about smaller Oh, I see. Okay, well that's good to know. I kind of figured that he would money wouldn't be a concern, but when they were explaining this, explaining the currency, I read it several times that it was like, okay, a pound is like, I think it's 12 soli, and then a soli is 20 pence. And I was like, in what universe would you set this up as a currency system and then explain it? Like, I feel like, why would you do this to people? Just set up something so much simpler. What is this? A lot of us finished book 1. Is book 2? I see. Okay. So, I see. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm gonna get back to reading. Someone's gonna be watching the VOD of this later and then just be really pissed that I didn't do any reading. Okay. Melissa pursed her lips and redirected her focus onto the pile of parts again. After dinner, Klein continued revising history. Only when Melissa and Benson showered and returned to their rooms did he wash up, enter his bedroom, and lock the door. He needed to organize and summarize what he had learned and the problems that he had encountered to prevent himself from forgetting or missing out on any critical points. Only by doing so would he be able to respond to subsequent developments in the future with a clear train of thought. Klein flipped open his notebook, took out his pen, and started writing in Mandarin. Why is the key to digesting potions acting? Interesting. Okay. My lord. Okay. When I was reading it for myself, they are so much easier because I'm not speaking them, and now my throat is already getting sore, and I have a presentation tomorrow, and I'm a little scared that my voice is going to give out. Oh, good lord. I'm not the demon god's lackey. I have not read that. Is that a manhwa or is that another web novel? Interesting. Okay. After pausing for a moment, Klein continued writing. The essence to resolving the problem with potions is through digestion, not simply controlling it. This can be understood in a straightforward manner. Merely controlling it would be akin to using the power of potions as an external tool. A tamed beast, no matter how well controlled, would ultimately not be part of a person. The risk of it turning on them would be ever present. As for digestion, it is to be viewed the downed potion as part of them. They can break it down, fuse with it, absorb it, and form an overall system. I am currently certain of this point. What is more important is how acting helps in digestion. So I'm guessing part of this is, and obviously I'm no spoilers, please, but I'm guessing the acting part of this comes in handy because of what they mentioned earlier, in that like all humans have a part of godhood in them, and then I'm presuming that as they progress down a sequence and digest it via acting, the acting is like allowing you to access more and more of your godhood, whatever that means. And that's why it helps you digest it, good lord, and that helps you become strong or like more in line with your godhood, which then helps you ascend into an angel, assuming what was written there was actually true and it wasn't just like dogmatic doctrine that was just a fucking lie. I don't know. I'm currently certain of this point. What is more important is how acting helps in digestion. According to my experience as a seer today, I can make 2 hypotheses. They can be verified in the future. 1. Acting based on the potion's name changes the state of one's body, heart, and soul, making them closer to the remnant, headstrong psyche of the potion's core. This results in resonance, which allows gradual assimilation and absorption. The remnant headstrong psyche spirit of the magic medicine might be like a computer with a complete defensive mechanism. If one wishes to attack it and break it down, they will need to find a bug, a security hole, or a key. The name of the potion provides a corresponding clue. Thus, we can disguise our body, heart, and soul as part of the system, through acting as we deceive the system's defenses. This line of thought is similar to Emperor Rosel's description. No matter which guess is right, there is no escaping the body, heart, and soul, for they are the only bridge between acting and the power of potions. Klein put down his pen and looked at the paragraph of text. For a moment, he even wanted to thank the education he received from the Foodaholic Empire. That's an interesting name. No matter if he chose science or engineering for his further education, he was equipped in the basics of logical thought. Otherwise, there was no way he could have become a keyboard warrior, nor would he have been able to analyze his current situation. Acting may have an effect, but we'll have to wait and see for the specifics, Klein guessed. After that, he wrote down his second question. Why would a seer, being more well-learned and professional in the domain of mysticism, be lacking in means when it comes to direct combat? Wouldn't being more well-learned and professional make a seer even more powerful, giving them the ability to discover a way to defeat their opponents? The reasons could be, first, just like the web novels I've read in the past, this is unironically how people like us think if we got into a fight and you're like, oh no, I've watched a lot of fights, I think I'd be fine. First, just like the web novels I've read in the past, I have transmigrated to a game world that has become reality. Thus, different jobs come with different specialties that have to be balanced against each other. But up to this point, there has been no sign of this world being a game, nor are there signs of mission-like developments. I'll put this reason on hold, but it's very unlikely. Thank you, Mari. Yeah, I have a glass of water with me. I'm just sipping away at it to try to not get too sore. Second, the fundamental law of this world is balance. The creator made this world with the core idea of balance. Third, potions at the same sequence level would have the same level of power. It is the most optimal state on what our forefathers found out and summarized. Exceeding this level of power would make it easier for one to collapse and lose control. Below this level of power would make it such that one would not obtain the desired Beyonder's powers. Thus, under the situation of a balanced power level, being stronger in one area would naturally mean that one is weaker in another. That probably makes sense. Fourth, everything in this world originated from the same source. They were formed by the remnants of the Creator. Thus, everything in this world is technically fragments of the Creator, and the fact that they have to complement each other would mean that there are inherent shortcomings to an individual. That might also be true, but I don't know if it necessarily states that humans are directly made from that Creator, or if we're just sort of a byproduct. I'm getting into a weird philosophical question here now, but it's not really relevant. I'm leaning towards the third and fourth reason. I would tend to agree. I think number 3 is probably true. But the latter stems from an unconfirmed myth and can only serve as a guide. Thus, I shall use the third reason as my guide. Hey, let's go, called it. And try to ascertain using it using my current knowledge and future studies. At this point, Klein had already written 2 full pages, but did not stop. Instead, he penned a new question. From what I learned today, my luck enhancement ritual is categorized as a classic ritualistic magic. Similar kinds of ritualistic magic can be split into 3 parts, the first being a sacrifice that sparks the interest of a corresponding existence, the second being comprised of an incantation specifically describing the existence in question. The third is using simple formatting and symbols to convey what one is asking. Using this as a benchmark to analyze the luck enhancement ritual, there's an obvious problem. There's no third part. It has the sacrifice aspect and the placement of staple foods and walking in a square in a counterclockwise manner with 4 steps. There is also a clear indication who the incantation is for, such as the phrase, "Blessing stems from the immortal Lord of heaven and earth." Okay, so the fact that ritualistic magic worked and has that phrase in it means there's probably some basis for there being a creator of the heaven and the earth. And I think in a former chapter it was mentioned that like it's possibly a lie that the creator died when they created the universe. So, and that would kind of make sense when it says the immortal Lord of heaven and earth. So like maybe that's true. I don't know. It is relevant. Please keep thinking about the mysteries, and I will do that. Dr. Z, I will let you guys know what I'm thinking, and you guys please let me know how wrong I am for sure. But what I did after, okay. But all I did after was close my eyes and wait. There was nothing in the ritual that described the goal of enhancing my luck. In other words, the corresponding existence has no way of knowing what the so-called luck enhancement ritual is asking for, and can only do as they see fit. Do as they see fit. What a troll. Isn't that a damned quintessential divination and arcane arts of the Qin and Han dynasty? Too much of a troll? I like how Klein out externally is like so put together, so gentlemanly. He's like, tipping his hat and stuff, and inside he's like a quintessential Redditor who's like, oh, scammer, get scammed, buddy. Love it. Yeah, this is great. I must have had rocks in my head back then for trying. Klein stopped writing and took 2 deep breaths, trying to calm himself down. He spat out a foul breath and continued writing. I can consider redesigning the ritual, making it more complete. The motive of the ritual shall be to return to Earth, back to the world with my parents and friends. Then here comes the question. Was the entity truly acting on a whim, or is there a deeper meaning to it? Also, is the entity that the descriptive incantations point towards in this world the same as the one from Earth? I would probably venture to say so, because they had power across dimensions, right? They had the power to pull you from Earth into this world, so I would presume so. If so, the difference in results between the first and second ritual could be explained as the entity doing as it wishes, but the result of me appearing above the grey fog during the second and third time, while being able to connect to justice and the hanged man, basically has no differences. Why would that be? Interesting. Yeah, he keeps lampooning. Based. If the fourth ritual tomorrow afternoon shows me the same stable results, that would mean that the effects are consistent. That would mean that the unknown entity has an agenda I do not know about. If that is the case, adding new descriptions and requests would not get me a clear response. In fact, it might complicate the ritual and result in adverse effects. Would the difference between the first ritual and the subsequent rituals, under the premise that the entity I called upon is the same one, mean that the results would be different depending on the world I'm in? Is it like I'm using a different interface? Oh, interesting. That's a good way to put it. I like it. And sorry, anyone that is here, anyone that has a second, I'm just curious, can you guys hear me okay? Is the voice coming off weird or like unstable or like shooting up and down? I just want to make sure you guys can hear it okay. If one of you has a second, I'd really appreciate it. Then how can I design it to obtain my desired outcome? If I think that the entities behind the first and subsequent rituals are different, some of the questions can be perfectly answered. But similarly, the stability of the results in the second and third trial would mean that the entity I'm praying to has a certain agenda, and there is no way I can change that for the time being. The most important question is that the identity of the entity and the ritual is directed. Where is he, and why doesn't he give me any clues or guidance? Could he be deep in the world of fog? Can I treat him as an entity in slumber, an entity that would give a fixed response if I give him a certain stimulus, but would not interfere with what I do other than that? That's interesting. I don't know how I don't know. I'd have to think more about that off the top of my head. I don't have any thoughts on that. It feels like there's fundamentally something wrong there, but I don't know. I can't think about it off the top of my head. Might make a video about it later, I don't know. Then I can introduce a different ritual as a stimulus and conclude whether the feedback I receive is regular. That way I can find the correct method of returning. But the problem lies in this possibility that he is not asleep. In that case, such tests might result in terrifying outcomes. It might be really dangerous. The first attempt must be conducted with extreme caution. The design must not anger the being. What a headache. I need more knowledge. Klein sighed and gave a summary. Finally, he wrote down other miscellaneous items. There are always formless voices resonating in my ear, shouting, Hornices? I'm going to pronounce that Hornices. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. Okay, these words are horrible. Why would you... Was it saying Phrygia? I don't know. Hornacius is the mountain range dividing the Loan Kingdom and the Intis Republic. The main peak is 6,000 meters above sea level. According to the records of the... and thank you for the voice confirmation. I appreciate it, Dr. Z. According to the records in the Antiguous family diary, there existed a nation of the Evernight in the 4th epoch. Is the nation of the Evernight related to the Evernight goddess? I mean, I would assume so. I thought that was just kind of a given. Is there any connection between these two? Are they allies or enemies? Was the Antigonus family obliterated by the Church of the Evernight goddess due to a nation of the Evernight? Do I hear murmurings coming from the diary, from the howls of the Antigonus family over 1 or 2,000 years? What then does the Phrygia, okay, why is it doing this to me? This is horrible. An interesting question. To be able to leave behind such a powerful diary, to leave behind a sealed artifact, 249 implies that the Antigonus family had possession of a relatively powerful Beyonder power. If that is so, which sequence did they possess? Was it complete or not complete? My realization that the diary is in the hands of Ray Bieber, that's a great name by the way, was a bit of a coincidence, but without any indication of it being arranged, could my fate really be tied up in that diaries? His ideas were penned on the pieces of paper. Klein tried his best to write down the events he had experienced and his guesses about their meaning. He wrote a total of 4 pages on both sides of each page. So he wrote like 8 pages? Jesus Christ, that's a lot. Hornicis phlegria. I appreciate that, Red Mari, but I'm gonna continue butchering them for the foreseeable future. I will copy that as a reference, but I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm almost certainly gonna butcher it. Rip Klein suddenly tore off the 4 pages and read them from top to bottom, sometimes marking certain sections with his pen, adding a few sentences at other times. Time flew quickly. Alright, see you, Kishi. You have a great day, buddy. I hope I'll see you again tomorrow if you have some time. If not, I hope you check out the channel sometime. But either way, you have a great day, buddy. Rip Klein suddenly tore off the 4 pages and read them from top to bottom, sometimes marking certain sections with his pen, adding a few sentences at other times. Time flew quickly. The crimson moon was temporarily covered by dark clouds. Klein picked up the pocket watch on the table, snapped it open, and looked at the time. He put down the watch and took out a box of matches from his drawers. He lit one and brought it close to the 4 pages of notes. Alright, see you, Red Mari. I'm not sure if you're saying bye to Kashid or you're leaving too. If you are leaving, you have a great day too, bud. I hope to see you again tomorrow too. The orange flame ignited the edges of the paper and quickly spread. Klein placed the notes on top of the wooden dustbin and watched the ashes drop. He then released his fingers, allowing the paper to fall. In just 10 seconds, everything had disappeared. All that was left was the still swirling ash and the charred bottom of the dustbin. As there was Emperor Rosel's secret diary in this world, Klein did not dare leave behind any evidence that he knew how to write Chinese. If old Neil and the rest discovered the 4 pieces of paper he wrote, he would have no idea how to explain the matter. And while writing the confidential questions, Klein was worried that the one paying attention to his dreams would be able to see and decipher the contents no matter which language he used, be it Loan, ancient Fasak, or Hermes. Therefore, he could only write notes in Chinese to organize and summarize. After he was done with the task, he burned the notes to leave no trace. And precisely because there was no way of saving, he set up a plan for himself. He would do this summary once a week just in case he forgot anything. As he watched the ashes fall, Klein pulled out a piece of white paper. He wrote the title, "To My Respected Mentor." I'm gonna assume that's Emperor Rosel. He wanted to write to Senior Associate Professor Quentin Cohen, asking if he had any relevant historical information about the main peak of the Hornices mountain range. Interesting. Okay, so he was writing to him instead. All right, I think I'm gonna do one more chapter today. I think we'll call it here. This is, in retrospect, a lot more reading than I had anticipated it to be. I think my voice is already starting to go a little bit. The next day, a Monday morning, Klein, who had the day off, didn't leave home. Instead, he gave Melissa his letter directed to mentor Cohen Quentin and more than enough money to buy stamps. He entrusted her with the job of mailing the letter at the post office near the Tingen Technical School where she studied. After breakfast, he slept in to make up for the lack of sleep caused by the previous night's work. He only woke up because of his stomach grumbling close to noon. He heated up some leftovers from the night before and ate them with a loaf of rye bread. Klein grabbed a newspaper and entered the bathroom on the second floor. Whenever he did that, he couldn't help but sigh at the lack of a cell phone. About 7 or 8 minutes, he left the toilet, refreshed and washed his hands, and he then returned to his bedroom and locked the door. Klein drew the curtains, lit up the gas lamp, and cogitated for half an hour. After practicing his spiritual vision, spirit dowsing, and dowsing rod for half an hour, he spent another hour mentally reviewing the mysticism knowledge he had recently gained. After doing that, he ripped up the old newspaper and crumpled them. Thanks, Maury. Yeah, I realized it as soon as I read the next next paragraph. I just I didn't even realize. Should have just kept reading a little bit more. But thanks for that, buddy. I appreciate it. After doing that, he ripped up the old newspaper and crumpled them into a few balls. He wrote on them moonflower candle, full moon essence oil, and other names of materials. He followed the prescribed steps of ritualistic magic in his head in order to master every detail, until he was entirely familiar with it. He didn't intend to try using ritualistic magic because it was both a waste of material and also easily attracted danger. He repeated again and again until he picked up his silver pocket watch patterned with vine leaves and took a glance. He realized that it was 2:45. He considered for a few seconds and brought the scraps of old newspaper to the kitchen on the first floor to burn them. While doing so, he made sure he was in an optimal state of mind as he prepared for the tarot gathering. Locking his bedroom door once again, Klein didn't wait for the clock to strike 3. He planned to enter the area above the grey fog ahead of time. He wanted to seize the chance and explore the place thoroughly. As Klein stood in an empty spot in his room and started walking counterclockwise, he suddenly worried that the Justice and the Hanged Man had yet to enter a suitable environment. He thought of a particular matter. Would they be disturbed or discovered? He had previously mentioned to allow Justice and Hanged Man to apply for leave ahead of time if they needed to be absent from the gathering, for some reason, such as being unable to find time alone or unexpected circumstances. It would have been an almost unsolvable problem for Klein in the past. There was no way he could build an entire server-based internet by hand in a different world, right? From my understanding, he's a wholly incapable person. I don't think he could do that in the slightest. Any technology beyond the telegram could expose him. But now, he had suddenly found inspiration from ritualistic magic. Ritualistic magic borrows the powers of others by seeking the help of different existences. Similarly, similar incantations would make it clear who it was directed to in the beginning, such as the Evernight Goddess or the Lady of Crimson. It would be a description of the unknown and clandestine existences. Then, can I amend the chant and redirect the beginning of the chant towards myself, directed at me? This way, even if Justice and the Hanged Man conduct the ritual in different locations, I would receive the message. Klein suddenly felt fresh insight as he began analyzing the likelihood of the method working. There are two difficulties. First, I am not an incredibly strong, high-level sequencer. Even if the description of the incantation was directed to me, I couldn't possibly receive the request. Second, how can I ensure that the description of the chant is directed at me accurately and doesn't stir away and hit some other unknown existence that fits the description? That would be incredibly dangerous. I feel like Klein is unique enough in this world that he could comfortably describe himself, but I guess the question is, how can he comfortably describe himself without revealing that he's I think they call it a transmigrator in this world? So I guess that's a fair question. Klein paced back and forth, deep in thought, for a possible workable solution. He went in circles with silent footsteps. Then he naturally linked the matter with the mysterious world of the fog. Even if I can't receive the message, that doesn't mean the grey fog can't. Its connection with the crimson stars can drag a person into the space directly, regardless of where they are in the physical world. I could consider tying myself to the mysterious space together during the directed description. In accordance with this train of thought, even though I might not immediately receive the request, the other party is holding the ritual. I might still be able to see the corresponding request whenever I enter the fog. Okay, that's interesting. Although I guess the question is, and maybe someone can answer this, because I don't think this would be spoilers. If you have an answer, I don't actually know. I was under the impression that Klein theoretically drags them into the grey fog, or whatever this dimension is, and they can't just voluntarily enter it themselves. Can Alger and Audrey just enter this dimension by themselves and leave a message, so to speak, or just pop in? Would that work? I don't know. Interesting. To put it simply, it is the difference between being online and offline for an instant messaging system. Klein became more excited the more he thought. He felt that the idea was worth a try. What kind of description could be used to precisely direct a message to me and to the grey fog world? He started thinking about the actual details. Basically, he's trying to turn the grey fog into a messenger. Okay, so he does have to drag them in. Okay, interesting. Okay, so that's what I thought. I just didn't know if maybe they could just enter it themselves and I was misreading it. Okay. In fact, he had an incantation that would definitely work. It was none other than the Leon translation of "Blessings stem from the celestial, worthy of heaven and earth." But herein lie the problem. He would lose control of the grey fog and lose his leading role. He could only exclude it. Fool from an alternate world? No way. It is quite accurate, and there is almost no other existence that fits the criteria, but would expose my biggest secret. Klein thought of one incantation after another, but he crossed each one off. And he can't willingly enter, only Klein out of the three can... Okay, that's what I thought. Thanks, guys. Okay, so yeah, and the fool from the alternate world would give away that he's a transmigrator, so that makes sense. After about 7 to 8 minutes, he finally decided on the description of the first paragraph that directed to him. The fool that doesn't belong to this era. That's not, yeah, I guess that would work. It was obviously not accurate enough, therefore Klein quickly added the mysterious ruler above the gray fog. I mean, that in my mind makes it less clear, because what if there is like an actual ruler of the gray fog dimension or whatever the hell, and now it goes to him? Well, I guess that if there is one, that ruler seems to help Klein, so maybe he'll just send it to him, I don't know. The combination of the two lines practically limited it to him. Furthermore, he had ties to the gray fog to him. It's still a little short. I cannot eliminate the possibility that there are multiple spaces and rulers above the gray fog. I cannot eliminate the fact that the description might be directed to the spirit world. Klein creased his eyebrows and planned on making it more certain. He thought about it for a full minute and finally decided on the last part. The king of yellow and black who wields good luck. It shared a similar meaning to the blessing stem from the exalted Thurch. Is that an actual word, or is that a... I don't know if that's a misspelling of search. Hold on. Is that an actual word? I think that's a misspelling of search. I'm gonna go with that. Or it might... I don't know. Okay, it might not be a misspelling. I don't know. If the incantation purely depended on the part of that description, it might end up directed away and provoking unknown dangerous existences. But with the first two lines as a limitation, and his experience of arriving above the grey fog through a similar incantation, he believed that the target's description could perfectly result in a perfect lock. Klein wasn't sure if casting the ritualistic magic with those three descriptions would be effective, but he was definite that it would not attract the attention of other existences. It wouldn't throw justice and the hanged man into danger. Klein, good lord, Kevin. Klein heaved out a long sigh and recited the incantation that he had decided upon. These are the opening sentences in the second trailer. I see. So they were sending him a message. Oh, that's very cool, Dr. Z. I appreciate that lore drop. That's awesome. That's cool to know. Yellow and black, heaven and earth. Oh, interesting. Yellow standing for like the gold and beauty of heaven, and black stemming from the darkness and suffering of humanity. The fool that doesn't belong to this era, you are the mysterious ruler above the grey fog. You are the king of yellow and black who wields good luck. Oh, that is a hard line. Holy crap. He nodded his head slightly and took out his pocket watch to confirm the time. It's already 2:58, and without further thought, Klein put away his pocket and entered cogitation. Soon he chanted and took 4 steps counterclockwise to form a square. The most ferocious noises and heart-stirring roars were heard once again. He felt the heartache was even harder to deal with than the pain of consuming the seer potion. The pain that was not a sharp pain... The pain that was not a sharp pain that tore through his head, it was a throbbing pain that made him manic and irrational. It was a pain that left him in a chaotic confusion. Klein controlled himself using cogitation and tried hard to ignore the voices. The muttering and murmurs receded like the tides. His body became ethereal, along with his spirituality. Everything seemed to float. The boundless grey fog appeared before his sight. The crimson stars at varying distances from him, just like pairs of eyes. All Klein did was will it, and he disappeared from where he was, reappearing at the seat of honor, at the long bronze table with 22 high black chairs. I'm gonna presume that by the end there's gonna be like 22 people in whatever the hell this place is, I guess. Or one for each of the tarot cards, I guess. I don't know. I think there's 22 tarot cards. I might just be making that up. I don't know. The effect of the ritual is definitely fixed, Klein muttered. He tapped his glabella twice and allowed the fog to engulf him. one's thicker than before. According to the description of the Hanged Man, if Justice had become a spectator, it would be best not to reveal any of his tics to her. Without any time for exploring, Klein extended his right hand and formed an invisible connection, connecting him to the two familiar crimson stars. On the roaring blue waves of the Sonia Sea, an ancient sailboat was sailing with the wind. Alger Wilson locked himself in the captain's cabin and made Ghost Ship provide him the best protection. By the way, anything about like the ships and stuff, I'm presuming that's going to be explained later because I have no earthly idea what the hell a ghost ship means. Like, does it literally just mean like a ghost ship, like what I'm thinking of, or is there like a specific meaning that's like specific to the lore? I just have no idea. He opened the pocket watch before him and laid it next to the brass sextant. The clock was ticking without joy as it exuded nervousness. When the hour hand, minute hand, and second hand aligned, there was an explosion of crimson before Alger Wilson. It ignored the layers and layers of protection he had placed over himself. Sigh. His sigh reverberated across the captain's room. Blackland. Empress Borough. Audrey Hall laid against the down-feathered pillow and glanced at the yellow paper in her hand. Her gem-like eyes looked like they had two souls spiraling slowly in them. Her gaze was calm and cool, as if she were waiting for a play to begin. As the crimson red erupted, she looked at herself being swallowed with complete detachment. Above the grey fog, in the magnificent palace, on the ancient and mottled long bronze table, Klein, who had already activated his spiritual vision, looked over when Audrey Hall's figure began to form. He was not surprised to see that the colors deep in her aura had blended together. It became pure and serene, like a lake that was clear and reflective. She really did become a beyonder. Klein was just about to move his gaze when he suddenly saw that the chair belonging to Miss Justice change. The bright stars on the back of the chair moved swiftly, forming an illusory constellation that didn't belong to reality. That constellation was familiar to Klein, because it was one of the symbols of mysticism. It was a symbol that represented Giant Dragon. Spectator, Giant Dragon. Klein restrained himself from shaking his head and looking over at the back of Hanged Man's chair. Typically speaking, it was impossible for him to see the back of the chair from this angle, but this was where he was in control. Everything presented itself according to his will. Ghost ship, as in the ship moves without someone controlling it, without potential spoilers. Okay, so the main thing is that they explain what that means a little bit later. That's what I'm most concerned about. I thought like maybe I missed something, because every time Alger came up, they would mention a ghost ship, and I'd be like, I don't know what that means. I don't know if I just like randomly skipped a chapter or whatever. But as long as it's explained, that's good enough for me. My God, I've been live for almost an hour now. Jesus Christ. Okay, I think this is gonna be my my last chapter, guys. I think I'm gonna finish this and then call it a night. Typically speaking, it was impossible for him to see. I already read that one. The constellation on the back of the chair had not changed, but since Klein had grasped the basics of mysticism, he wasn't as ignorant as before. He could recognize that it was the symbol of windstorm. Sailor, keeper of the sea, windstorm. That's reasonable. The color deep in the Hanged Man's aura is much purer than it was. Has he leveled up? Oh yeah, what about the symbol behind his chair? Klein suppressed his impulse to look, wrapped the edges of the long table thrice just like before, and smiled. Congratulations, Miss Justice, you are a beyonder now. He can tell straight away. Audrey was stunned and smiled faintly. Thank you, Mr. Fool, and thank you, Mr. Hanged Man. That was much faster than I thought. Klein didn't continue the topic, but tapped his glabella and said with a smile, Lady, sir, have either of you found Roselle's diary? Alright, well, Thank you so much, guys, for joining. Before either of you go, if you don't mind hanging around for one more second, just curious. Would you guys be interested in me doing like a further read through tomorrow or some other time? Is that something you guys are interested in? And secondly, I do plan on posting these as like VODs after, just so that, you know, if someone wants to see it, whether, like, I feel like for me this would be great if, because I listen to something while I'm falling asleep, and I feel like if someone just calmly reading, you know, a web novel would be like a nice thing to fall asleep to. That'd be dope. So definitely gonna post it, but and I'm curious, are you guys just reading along with me? Are you guys like working on something and then you just have this on in the background? What's happening? If you guys don't mind answering before I leave, that'd be fantastic. Yeah. But okay, that was awesome. I think that worked out to be about an hour and a half. I think. Not 100% sure. I will find out the exact time when I'm done, I suppose. I think it's about an hour 7 minutes is where I'm sitting at. Oh, good lord, Dr. Z. It's 2:30 for you. Where are you? 2:30 a.m. Good lord, buddy. Go to sleep. Maury, when you say announce, do you mean, do you mean like literally announce, like, okay, I'm gonna start reading like chapter whatever now, or like, do you mean like rhetorically, like I should post it somewhere or something like that? Iran, wow, okay, you're tuning in from Iran. That's dope. That's awesome. All right, well, I am thank you to both of you, and anyone else that did pop in. I really appreciate it for my first stream. That was dope. And it went oh, you're personally reading along with, okay, I did not consider that. In my head, when I was reading along, I was thinking people were already like doing something else and we just had this on. Dope. I will definitely do that for next time, Mari. I apologize. I'll be more careful next time. Apologies. Yeah, other than that, again, thank you. So, and post a few minutes beforehand. I will do, buddy. I think I'll try to go live tomorrow a little bit earlier. But yeah, I'll definitely post it like an hour or two in advance so that you guys, so that anyone who wants to join has a bit of a heads up. And then, like I said, I'll post the VODs. Once again, thank you, both of you, for joining, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Probably, yeah. Thanks, Z. You have a great night too, buddy. All right, I'll see you guys, and I hope to catch you guys in one of my other streams later, hopefully. Dr. Z, I know it's late for you, so maybe you get an exception, but if you watch a VOD, all right, if I miss you. All right, I'm going to end the stream. All right, see you guys.